Hey loves, I'm Keely. Welcome back to my channel. It is the 4th of July. For this month's interview, I knew I wanted to focus on a recipe that truly felt American, but you guys, I hit the friggin' jackpot. Have you ever taken a chance on a whim that was kind of crazy, but you did it anyway? Yeah, that was me. A few weeks ago, I was just scrolling on Instagram, and I came across this woman named Tori Smith. I was immediately captivated by her pictures. She just celebrated farm life and agriculture and the Midwest, all the things that I love. So of course I had to, creep a little bit. And I saw this picture that she had posted of this gorgeous looking apple pie. It just looked like it came from a book. And right next to it, she had the handwritten recipe card that her grandmother had given her. And in her post, she talked about how much that handwritten recipe card meant to her and how she could never make this amazing pie like her grandmother, but she tries anyway because it makes her feel so good. I thought, I need to contact this girl because in one post, she celebrated everything that I love about food, recipe, and tradition. It's that connection that we all feel, no matter where we grow up. So after I saw this post, I knew I had to reach out to her. And I thought, well, if she doesn't respond, that's fine. At least I tried. But we ended up talking. And my original goal was to just talk to her about the recipe, maybe meet her somewhere. But we just totally clicked. And I ended up inviting her over to my kitchen. Yes, I invited a stranger over into my kitchen to make pie with me. But she was so amazing that she agreed. We ended up baking and talking about our different upbringings for almost 5 hours. It was wonderful. I learned so much about making apple pie like a grandmother, but I also learned about a different way of life. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and Tori grew up on a farm. So, as you'll see in the video, I learned so much about 4-H Club and what happens when you're showing off chickens at a fair. Just so many things that I just found fascinating that I know you're just gonna love. So do me a favor. Watch this entire video. I've included tips along the way that are crucial to making amazing pie, but you're also gonna get something else out of this. By the end of the video, you are gonna feel deep in your soul this wholesomeness, like you've stepped back in time, and that was the gift that Tori gave me. So pour yourself some iced coffee, pop in your headphones if you need to, and just enjoy. Tori's gentleness, her humor, and her grace were in so many ways like this pie. And I learned a very valuable lesson after making this pie with Tori. And that is, don't worry about perfection. It's not important. Just enjoy what's right in front of you. After you watch the video, be sure to like and subscribe and then comment below what your biggest takeaway was about how to make amazing pie. Also be sure to follow Tori Smith on Instagram because she's just amazing and you are just gonna love her. I just can't get over it. Like, this is just so cool.
It's easy. It cuts your time in half. To me, peeling apples, cutting the apples, that was always the most difficult part. Now you have a tool that does it for you. So in with these apples that Keely so kindly purchased, I've got brown sugar, white sugar, flour, and a generous helping of cinnamon because you cannot have too much cinnamon. And I tell you what, using this is nice and all, but you really gotta get in there with your hands to get the underside of these.
I love that.
You have to. But so the majority of this is the white sugar. That's what there's the most of, and then followed by your brown sugar and your flour, which is equal parts, and then you've got a smaller dash of cinnamon, but by the time I'm done with my extra cinnamon, it may be equal parts to what I did brown sugar and flour. We'll see. We're just gonna mix these up, make sure they're heavily coated. This is what really gives that pie the juicy flavor. And you have all those juices running out of it by the end once it cooks. It's all stemming from what you're putting in there right now. And if you could smell this with the cinnamon and the brown sugar, it's not even cooking yet, but holy cow.
It's heavenly.
Yes. And Keely, how great was it to peel apples with the easy...
It was life-changing.
It was great, right? Easy peasy. Keely's watching me stir this with my hands, and she's probably has zero appetite anymore. But this
Not
is
at all.
Home, so
No.
I'm just
I absolutely love it. We're keeping it real.
I'm gonna be real with you. So
I'm glad. We ain't fancy.
You can use that wooden spoon all you want, but I don't think they get as evenly coated unless you're moving them around with your fingers.
I agree.
So just a little bit longer. And what's great about this, and I should mention this too, so you get all this stirred together before you make your pie crust, because of course we home make pie crust here. There's no store-bought pie crust. I really like to let these apples sit in this mixture. I just feel like the longer they can sit and absorb a lot of this flavor, the better off you are. So this is something my grandma always stressed as well. Like, you can't do regular Crisco. It has to be butter flavored Crisco. I believe there was a time back in the day where they probably used actual lard, but grandma has resorted to this. And I should say something about this recipe as well. So I asked my grandma, you know, where did this recipe originate from? How on earth did you get it to be this good? Like, and she said when she was in 7th grade, she wanted to make a pie for her class, and her mom said, okay, perfect, you know, we will make that pie, but you're gonna make it this time. Like, Wanda, I'm teaching you to do it. So she made a pie by herself with her mom's help for her class, and that was like a big deal, you know. It was like her first time making it solo. So she gets to do this, and she's really proud of it, and so she used her mom's recipe that time, and I think it turned out pretty well her first time doing it, that it just kind of became a thing for her to be like, pies are my thing. Like, you know, this came fairly natural to me. So later on I asked her, you know, so this is your mom's recipe, and grandma goes, no, I've tweaked it so much over the years to get it exactly right. You know, each time she made it, she would learn, oh, you know, less flour here and more cinnamon there, and when you're cooking it, you know, move it to the top shelf during this, whatever the little, you know, tweak was. But she's just done it so many times now that she's pro, and this is the recipe that she's come up with since, you know, those early days. So yeah, I
Love that.
That's how this has become what it is, and literally everyone I know back home is like, Wanda Street Matters pie. I'm like, I have that recipe. My kids get to eat that someday too. Like, that's like the coolest thing. I get shortening in the flour mixed to the size of peas.
Yep.
So that's what we're going for here. I think she always told me there was always a chance that you overdid this though. Like, there was like a happy medium that you need to find. And I'm never ever gonna make this pie quite like my grandma, but we're gonna do the best we can, Keely.
I love it.
Or let these dough balls sit for a little bit so that water can really engage with the flour. Like, I wouldn't know to do that. And just the way she has it written here, you know, I hear it in her words just because I've heard her say it so often. So I think that's really cool. She wrote it like she would say it. She didn't, you know, make it like something out of a cookbook.
This is what I think we should all do.
All that more special, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so our dough balls are ready. We've got a bottom crust and then a top crust that you can choose if you're, you know, if you want to do the extra work and do a lattice top, or if you just want to roll it out flat, which is what I normally do. We can do that too. Look at that. We're not sticking anymore. Well, maybe.
You can just add some more flour.
Yeah. I think we're gonna need to.
Round 2.
So you may have seen me measuring out Crisco earlier. Little did I know, I was using a 1/3 cup measurement instead of a 1/4 cup, and the recipe calls for 3/4 cup butter flavored Crisco. So I had about a third more than I needed in this recipe. So as we were rolling out the dough quickly, I was like, this is not right. And I was trying to make excuses, you know, maybe it's the weather, and Keely's over here, maybe it's my rolling pin. Oh no, Tori, you just messed up.
It's okay.
Nothing wrong with it. It's okay, it's life. What's a little bit more human than starting over and learning from our mistakes?
Exactly.
Grandma would not have been okay with me finishing it out incorrectly. So you know what? We are back at it.
She'd be proud of your work ethic.
That's right. That's right. So we are back at it. I can't stop laughing about it. So funny.
You have to laugh.
Keely's so easygoing. Let me in her kitchen, messing up in her kitchen. Let me use more of the ingredients.
Of
that
course.
She bought. What a saint. We're just out here making mistakes, doing our thing. My husband's gonna watch this and roll his eyes and be like, oh my goodness, you went there and messed up.
It's
I
fine.
bet he still would have eaten it though. Show him side by side of here's what it should look like. Here's what it was looking like as Tori was talking my ear off and trying to get it right.
I loved it though.
No, I haven't heard your dogs this entire time. Are you sure you have dogs?
You better knock on wood now. You better.
Are you sure you have dogs? You're not making that up in your head?
No, so
Especially
we
big
have it
dogs.
down to a system though. Like we have one of those giant like box fans. And if it's
Yeah.
on the highest setting, they can't hear anything down here.
Okay.
So like if we have a repairman or something.
You sneaky.
I know.
That is hilarious. We have a giant box fan. I didn't know if that was a grandma thing or if that's just what people did.
No, it's a really good tip.
Okay, so we're gonna stop there. I'm paranoid about how I did it last time, so we're just gonna do it all together and see how we can get it to clump, and clearly we need a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There for a while, I thought the 4-H cooking books were like second to the Bible, so that's like all I need.
I love that.
Were things out of my 4-H books.
See, I need to see those books because that's like right up my alley.
Yes, so that was always fun. And you know, I had to bake all those things, like I did baking projects and sewing projects alongside my grandma in 4-H growing up, and you were always assigned like Rice Krispie treats, and as you moved up, you know, maybe you had to make oatmeal chocolate chip cookies, but you couldn't make any recipe. It had to be the recipe out of the book, and they graded you based on, they knew what the consistency was supposed to be.
No.
They knew, you know, exactly how they were supposed to taste. And all these people that would taste test them, that was the most, that was the scariest part. You know, you'd go and get judged, and they'd ask you questions about what you baked and how long did it take you and what did you learn. You know, and that's where you really develop great public speaking at a young age, when you would be put on the spot and have to answer questions like that to a judge. And now that I'm older, I help judge projects in 4-H, and it's really apparent when you have the kid that comes up and clearly their parents did the work, you know, because they don't have many answers to your questions about
no.
what happened and whatnot, which is kind of cute. But anyway, we all learned that year at the fair that following the book is pretty important, and you will be judged by it. The people that judged you had made this recipe 100 times, and they knew exactly how it should be. I still need more water, Keely. I just know. This is how we always did it. Just added it in a spoonful at a time, because once you go over, you can't undo it. Or you probably could in some fashion. You probably have an answer to that.
Well, I've tried and it just doesn't go well.
Yeah.
It's better to have the pie crust be on the drier side than too wet.
Yep. I'm trying to think of where this whole 4-H conversation rooted from, but you asked me how I got inspiration for things. and I
Yeah, we were
reflected
talking
back
about
to when I
books,
was young.
So how does 4-H work? It may sound like really silly, but I'm
That's not
fascinated by it.
silly. That is not silly one bit. So anyone can be a 4-H member. I think a lot of people from more, you know, developed areas thinks it is strictly a rural.
That's
you
what
know,
I thought.
A rural kids thing. It's not. I mean, you'll find 4-H programs, the 4-H organization everywhere. But I just think it's more of a tradition in those areas of life. Because a lot of it comes from, you know, if you have livestock and you want to show cattle or hogs or whatever. I mean, people in big cities a lot of times do not have access to do those kinds of things. But I mean, 4-H has expanded in such a unique way where they can, I mean, you can do rocket science, you can do farm safety, you can do projects in visual arts and communications, and study a country and do a poster board on that. Just overall, you know, health and learning how to make a first aid kit, and you know, the importance of that at a young age, and just little things. I mean, there's all kinds of projects. So you sign up early in the year for what projects you want to do, and there's different levels of each project. You know, there's 1, 2, 3, sometimes a 4 level, based on your age and your experience, what level you get entered into for that specific project. For example, I always did sewing. I did 8 years of sewing. I did baking projects, and I showed cattle 1 year. Dad thought that was, you know, a lot of work. We're primarily grain farmers, but we do, you know, the cattle thing, crossbred Angus as a hobby. So that was a lot of work. My dad and uncles grew up showing, and my dad put cattle for quite a few years and traveled doing that, but he just knew how much work and money went into that. So he's like, senior year, I'll let you show cattle. So we did that, and my sister and I showed chickens, so we were in the poultry barn a lot. But it's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. Your summer is dedicated to your 4-H projects, and I mean, but boy, what you learn from it and what you get out of it. A lot of the friends I had in 4-H I still have today, you know, because of those connections. And so you get these projects. There's different lessons that you do for your project leading up to doing the actual project to take to the fair and show and get judged, and then it hangs there at the fair all week, and people can, you know, spectators can walk by and see your name on the tag and what you did, and it's just fun. It's just there's a lot of good morals and tradition that comes out of the 4-H organization, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. You can start when you're like 8 years old. You can be a clover bud before that, and that's what they call it. The little ones. And just the 4-H motto itself. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. That's, you know, that speaks volumes to traits that everyone should have in such a simplistic way. And like, if everyone could live by the 4-H creed and the FFA creed, I mean, they're just so well written, and, you know, stand for a lifestyle that I think is, I don't want to say lost today, but harder to find. And
Exactly.
It's a big deal to me. You know, it's something like I hope my kids are interested. I'm never going to push my kids to do things. I don't have kids yet, but like 4-H would be one of those things that I would highly encourage them to be a part of.
So it's not supposed to be Play-Doh.
No! I was so embarrassed. I was like, what on earth am I doing wrong here? Tori, you did the whole thing wrong earlier. Literally. Just like this. Do you smell that? Cinnamon?
It's gorgeous.
If I could wrap this up and put it in a candle, I totally would. And just call it Grandma's Goodness. That's what...
Grandma's $400 pie.
Right? I don't think I could sell the candle for that much. What do you think? I highly doubt it.
Well, in 4-H, anything's possible.
Well, yeah, that's true. Anything for a good cause. It's all about your community. People stepping up to support a good cause. But it doesn't hurt when you have good pie to back it up. Almost in. So I have baked it before where it's overflowed a bit because I put too much of the juices in. So we just have to be careful. I don't want it to bubble over.
Yeah.
So we'll get a majority of these apples, kiwi, but if we have to leave a little bit of this juice, and because these sat for so long, it may have, you know, produced more juice than past. So we just need to be careful that this isn't going to bubble up over the edge. But when I do bake it, a lot of times if I don't have an oven liner in the bottom, which I know can sometimes affect the baking of your pie, I'll lay a sheet of foil down just in case it does bubble over.
That's a good idea.
I don't have a huge mess at the end. What you gotta do, you get down to some of these end of the apples. So good. So good. You're gonna love this. But yeah, so anyway, we'd show chickens, but leading up to the show, you have to wash chickens. You know, you have to care for your birds, and then there's showmanship of how you get them out of the cage and how they look. But it was so much fun. We would have so much fun leading up to the show. You know, you'd be showing these select hens and this rooster. I had Grand Champion Rooster one year. It was a big deal.
Whoa.
Yeah, I won like a whopping $40. Like, it's
Bragging rights.
It's all for fun.
You got the bragging right.
Yeah. I got the purple ribbon hanging around the cage when all the spectators walked through the barn. It was like, yeah, that's King Louie. That's what I named it. But you wash them before show, and you have a big trough of water, soap and water, like Dawn Dish soap. Like you can clean birds with Dawn Dish soap and water, and then another trough at the end that has water with a little bit of vinegar. That vinegar is supposed to help the soap run off their feathers. So you would, no joke, you would get a bird and you'd hold it by its feet. They're very tolerable, and you just grab, dunk it in the water, dunk it in the soap and water, dunk it in the vinegar and water, and they'd come out and they'd, you know, ruffle their feathers. I'm not kidding, Keely. And then you would, you'd let them kind of walk around and dry off in some fresh bedding that wasn't, you know, covered in poop or whatever, and they'd dry off and ruffle their feathers. And then before show, you would take some Vaseline, and they're all clean now, they're in their clean bedding, and they dry off, and you would take that Vaseline and put it on their legs, their comb, and their wattle, and make it shine, like glisten. And you would take them and you would hold them, and you'd go up to the judge and you'd have them rested right here, and your hands would be like this, and their feet would be through here, their 2 feet. You'd have to like hold it like this, and you'd just go like this to the bird, like hand it to the judge, and the judge would like open its feathers and inspect, are, you know, all the feathers, you know, do they look correct? Are there any broken? You know, you're looking for perfect bird, and they like go through and they judge these birds. I'm not kidding. On the edges here and pull off. I have a little tool that I can normally do this with before I press it, but some of these areas here where there's imperfections, I'll just take the excess from over here and fill it in where it needs it. Well, I wouldn't go that far, Keely, but you can just kind of patch it up just like a quilt. Whatever you need to do to. Then you take it to the family reunion and no one knows the difference. It's all baked, it all looks pretty darn good. And it tastes great, people forget about the presentation. A little hole we can patch up. And that happens, you know, you pull crust off, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You're probably grading this how you got graded in pastry school. It probably
Not
didn't
at all.
go over too great, but this is how I fix my imperfections. I'm human.
That's what everybody does.
Well, good. Look at us making headway here.
It's looking like a
I
pie.
don't know, Grandma, how's that look? That's different. She'd say, that's just fine, Tor, that'll do. Bit of milk and just kind of pour it along. She always said it helped it bake a little bit more evenly, give it that golden that we all want. If you just put a little bit of milk on top. And I suppose you could brush it into it. I don't feel like I never do that. I just kind of let it go like this, and when it bakes, it'll go around. You can just kind of
No way.
move what you need to. And also, when you do this, you know, the spots that are more, is liquefied the word I want to use, than others will bake, you know, a little darker or a little less dark and kind of give it that pretty coloring. So I don't know if this is what they taught you in pastry school. I highly doubt it, but
They did not.
Sparland, Illinois, this is what we do. And I usually just do my venting right in the middle. Keely, if you do it a different way, I'd love to know.
No, I love to do it that way because then when it's done, you kind of know where to cut.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it looks so pretty.
Yeah, just make a little Star. I feel like this is kind of like your storybook book, you know, whenever like grandma made a pie in the illustrated, you know, in the children's book, that it always
Yeah.
had this little.
I feel like the first pie I ever saw was when I was watching Snow White.
Oh,
When in the beginning when she's making a pie and it looks just like this, so
Yes.
that's always what I think of.
yep. Sprinkle it around there, and I think this gives it that texture when you bite into that
Yes.
flaky crust.
It's
That has
wonderful.
a little bit of that sugar. I think it's just a little bit more. Oh my goodness, is that? We're gonna put it on the top rack while it's at 425, and then after time allows for us to turn the oven down to 375, we're gonna move it from the top rack to the lower rack. So high heat, higher rack, lower heat, move it down closer to the.
Well, it's time for me to enjoy the rest of my 4th. But until next time, you guys, just keep living life from scratch with a whole lot of love. Bye.